Hi, my name is Cailyn, and I am on staff here at YWAM Denver. This is my friend Maddy.
I'm also on staff here at YWAM Denver. We've known each other for a few years. We're pretty good friends. We did our phase 2 here together. And today we just want to share some little tidbits of what God has been doing in our lives on staff.
Yeah, a ton of stuff. So I guess I could start. So one of my roles here is the communications director. So I manage some of our social media, videos, things like this. And what I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to be in nonprofit, PR type stuff. And just the way that God has worked to bring me to staff here and keep me, I'm able to do exactly what I've always dreamed of doing and just keep people going and bringing the gospel in all new ways. I work with some of our secondary schools and things like that. And Maddie's led how many outreaches with the DTS?
I think two outreaches and a mobile team, and I've been on a few others. Yeah, it's an exciting experience to lead outreach, and a little bit stressful before because you're planning, you're calling contacts, trying to find a place, praying about where God wants you to go, and you're like, I've got it, we're going to Mexico, and then you contact the people and they're like, actually we're booked, and you're like, okay, did I hear the Lord right? Does he actually want me to go there? The first outreach I led was to Asia, and I felt like I was supposed to go to Thailand and Cambodia, and so I called them. Thailand worked out great, Cambodia worked out great, and a few weeks before we were supposed to leave, I get an email saying something didn't go through, Cambodia couldn't host us, and I freaked out, and I was like, God, why would you do this to me? What's happening? And I just felt like he was saying, just trust me, I know what's happening. And I felt like we were supposed to go to Vietnam, but then I emailed them, and they're like, it can't work. You can't come to Vietnam, our base can't host you, all this stuff. And I was like, okay, God, what do you want me to do? And my assistant and I prayed, and we both really felt like we were supposed to go to Vietnam, but I didn't know how it could happen. And then, I started to look into other places, other countries, and just nothing was really sitting right in my spirit. And it happened that one of our past students said, oh, I know a great contact in Vietnam. Let me hook you up with this guy. And she did, and we ended up going to Vietnam, and it was a really great experience. And I was just shocked by how faithful the Lord was through that whole process, just because it felt a little bit chaotic in the midst of it, and it didn't feel right to trust the Lord because I wanted to be in control. But ultimately, God knows what he's doing, and he came through in the end.
Yeah, when we were kind of trying to figure out what we wanted to share with everyone, we just kept coming back to, we have all these little stories that build up and kind of build the tapestry of what has become our faith. As we've been on staff for 4 years, my DTS was 7 years ago at this point, and so how much the Lord has done in little ways just in the past that we've really been walking and following with him. And one thing that always stands out when I'm kind of struggling to hear the voice of God, I'm asking him questions and pursuing him, is it's almost always I'm walking my dog at a ridiculous hour in the neighborhood, and I will look up and just see a shooting star. And so whether or not that's an answer to the Lord, I just know that he's there and listening and gives me that little beauty shooting star type thing across the sky to remind me of him, and that he does hear me, he does have what's best for me. Do you have anything like that God just shows you? He literal showing up?
I not necessarily a shooting star or something like that, but every time I feel something's going weird, or I'm praying about something, I feel the Lord always is you need to wait until right before I tell you. And for me, because I really like to know what I'm doing, and I get too excited and I'll jump ahead, I know by now if I ask the Lord for something a year in advance, he'll probably not tell me until really close. But that kind of makes it exciting, because then I'm God, I need you. But
then it's great because because he's done it so many times, you know that he's still gonna show up. He's gonna come in and at the last minute pull you in front of anything and pull you where he wants you to go. And he just tells you. And I know I've We've walked through so many situations of just like,
Yeah.
what's he gonna say? When are we gonna know? And it's always that last minute, especially with you.
I know, always with me. And I'm glad though, because for some reason, even though I know at the end God will always show up, I still get really nervous and I'm like, what if this is the one time he doesn't? Is God who he says he is? And I'm like, of course he is. Yeah, it reminds me of the story. God really likes to give me money and then tell me to give it away, which I mean is nice, but I'm like, oh yeah, I have this much money, and then he's like, guess what, you gotta bless someone else. And I'm always like, it takes me a second, I'm like, okay God, you gave me the money, I guess I can do this, and then it's super joyful. But I think last year I'd been saving up for our taxes that we pay and saving up for some other like things that I needed to buy, and I had just like about the right amount, and then God told me to give it all away, and it was a lot of money, and I was like, God, why would you do this to me again? I ask him that a lot, and he's like, because I know,
because I'm still teaching you and you still haven't learned.
Because I've done this 20 million times and you still haven't learned. Yes. But he told me to give it away. I did it, and I always get super jealous of the people who God like gives them like $2,000 or like this new car or this or that, and like I'm always like, God, you never give me anything like that. But then he's like, have you ever went without? Like, have you ever not had what you needed in the moment? And I was like, no. Like, you've always provided. So I gave that money away. It was coming time where I needed to pay for those things. And somehow, it wasn't like one giant donation where $2,000 showed up at my door, but it was like just somehow over the next 3 months, I've saved what I had saved over the whole year and was able to pay all those things. And it was just like, psh.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Just magically there somehow. Yeah, I think if just like when you look back, like I was talking about earlier about the tapestry of our lives and God's just these little building blocks of faith, and even like my road to DTS, I was graduating high school soon, didn't want to go to college right away, wasn't sure what I was going to do, and a friend told me about YWAM, and so I was like, went on YWAM.org and knew what I wanted. I wanted to travel and go overseas, and I figured doing it for Jesus can't be that bad. Little did I know how much my life and like God would completely change the direction of my life, but it's been like so good since that, and just people speaking into my life, especially like my senior year of high school. Like we had a guest pastor come after a summer camp, from growing up going to summer camps, and he just kind of sat down all the seniors and asked like, do like people at your high school know you're a Christian? And that was so convicting. And even like that one, like sitting around a bonfire, small conversation that I'm sure I'd heard 100 times, like being in a youth group situation, but for some reason that question stood out and was what even like led me to even look for YWAM, look for something similar, do a gap year, anything like that would just totally change the course of my life. And those questions of when people step in and like challenge your faith and like challenge you where you're at, like it does so much more than you think it will.
It's crazy. Yeah, and I love like how we can look back, like we're not that old, we're 24 years old, but like how we can look back and like see before I knew that God like speaks and like is more tangible than I thought he was. Like I can look back at my life and see how God has orchestrated things and like put people in my life to speak this or to say that, and like you can just really see his hand in your life and like how he's spoken to you throughout the years, even when you didn't realize that he was. Yeah,
and just like learning to recognize that like that's him talking. Like it probably took like the whole shooting star thing, like 15 times for me to even correlate. Oh, I am praying and I'm talking to the Lord, and then this happens. Like that's not coincidence. That's like him reaching out in like a different way and like showing how much like he loves me. It's even coincidence that I'm looking up at the sky at that moment.
Yeah, because it's hard to see a shooting star. Like I tried to look at them
all the time.
I'm like, where are they? And I've seen a lot actually, but whenever I'm like looking for one, I can never find one. Yeah, but it's cool. I remember in my DTS, like getting here, and I don't know, I grew up in like kind of a conservative background, but I didn't know that you can like hear the voice of the Lord in the way that I do now. And so during my DTS, I was super frustrated because everyone can hear the voice of God, and I was like, I can't do this. And like I made it through my whole DTS and my whole outreach, and I was still like just a little bit frustrated, like, why haven't I had this experience with God? Like, why doesn't he speak to me? I guess I'm kind of whiny, I've realized. But it's okay because God still loves me. But I'm like, why? Like, I just don't understand why the same experiences aren't happening to me that other people are having with the Lord. Yeah. And just like looking back now at my DTS, I'm like, I was so dumb because God spoke to me so many times, and I realize, like, I can see it now, and I'm like, okay, you were just ignorant to what God actually sounded like and like what he was saying to you.
I think, well, and we so often like compare our relationship with the Lord with someone else's. Yeah. And just like that it has to be up to this standard, but you weren't created like that, so your standard is different, and like it's your relationship with God is uniquely yours, and that's what makes it good. There's not 12 types of relationships that you have to fit into. Yeah. And then that's how you are. But wouldn't that be so easy? Like that's, and I think we see it all the time because we're meeting people from around the world, and even like when you meet someone from a different culture, what like how they experience God is so different, and it's so cool to see. I love working with schools that have Brazilians and people from like Mexico and even Canadians, like how different our cultures are and how like that affects how we relate and understand God, and then we all come together and have these really cool experiences. I remember back in our winter DTS, we had, in the first week, it was hearing the voice of God. Cailyn was teaching. It was great. And like first day of lectures in your DTS, he challenged every one of the students to like ask the Lord to give them a word for someone and then to share it with that person. Just usually a word of encouragement or something similar. And one of the girls was just sitting there. She didn't want to do it. She was like, if I don't, they won't catch me. They won't notice I'm not moving, which we will. Like, we will. And she just went up to her, encouraged her, and she's like, what I have in my head is really, like, I don't get it. It's weird and random. So I was like, challenge her, just go and share that with that person. Yeah. And she did, and that person ended up crying because it was so, like, spot on and, like, just from the Lord, exactly what they needed to hear, what she needed to, like, was supposed to share with them. And I just think like, that's what happens. Like, learning to trust that it's God speaking to you, and that he's there, like, build up other, like, use you to build up other people and build up and encourage and all these different things. But it was one of the coolest times I've ever, like, seen that happen, of just going, I don't know, this sounds crazy, and then it hitting so in line with what the Lord wanted to speak to that person. Yeah. It is. It's really, like, I love that part of the Lord, that he speaks, and, like, not only to you, but he speaks to you for other people, and we are the body of Christ, and we're made to encourage one another, and we're made to build one another up so we can go out and share the gospel with others. And I can't tell you how many times during, like, a worship, or you're out in Boulder sharing the gospel with people, or at the grocery store, and God's like, hey, I want you to encourage this person, or I want you to say this to this person. And that the amount of times that I've been like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. Because yes, you get more sure of what the Lord sounds like, and you grow closer to him like you would any friendship. Yeah. But still, like, stepping out in obedience takes courage, and it takes like a choice on your part, and it's risky. Yeah. And it's like small things. Like, I know one time I was out with friends, I think it was probably it was a couple years ago. It all blurs together. And we were walking, and the girl I was with just stopped, and she goes, and she, like, runs over to a stranger on the street. I'm like, oh, where are you going? You're running away. And she just, like, stopped and, like, touched the strangers, and she goes, I'm just supposed to tell you that you're really beautiful. And, like, that person, you could tell that, like, they were happy, like, it lifted everything, and and she ran back, she's like, God just, like, told me to do that. And it's such a simple thing of, like, being, like, that close to listening to, like, the heart of God, and, like, even people you see, like, smiling at them, and, like, if you complimenting strangers, like, that's lifting people up and, like, being an encouragement. So I think, like, if someone, like, stands out to you, it's probably the Lord like saying, just go be nice to them.
Yeah. And it's also like really amazing how just being obedient to the Lord and going and encouraging people or giving someone a word really opens up the door for you to share the gospel with people, because people are way more receptive to hearing what and who Jesus is and what he can do for them in the relationship that he wants to have with them, if you have some sort of relationship with them, if you have some sort of like, even just like smiling at someone builds so much confidence in who you are.
Or saying you're smiling at someone, since we all have to wear masks everywhere.
Drawing a smile.
I was at the store the other day, and you know, like, you're just like smiling at people because you forget you're wearing a mask. But some guy was like walking by and he goes, I'm smiling, like, to every person he saw, just to like let them know, like, we're all still together. We're all still like humans, and like we haven't lost that humanity just because you can't see it on someone's face.
Just because you're wearing a mask. Yeah. That's really cool. And like, what a better time than now, when everything's a little uncertain, to be sharing that hope with people and to be sharing the gospel and looking for those little ways to spread Jesus with people, to open those doors. And so, just like, to wrap up, I really challenge all of us, including us, to be looking for the opportunities God has given us, whether you're at the grocery store or you're wherever. I don't know where you guys go. But like, and being certain to listen to Holy Spirit, listen to God, and ask him, like, what do you want to do with me today? Like, what should we do together? Should we encourage someone? Should we smile at someone or tell them that we're smiling
and
at them?
You'll be so amazed when you look back in a few years of how those little things and being sensitive to the Lord speaking, like, builds your faith, and you see his faithfulness throughout your whole life, and like, just makes you into like a more faithful, strong person, ready to go and fight for him and everything like that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, that's great.
So we will be live the rest of the week here. So we'll see you back tomorrow night, I believe, with Peter and Rachel, and worship again on Wednesday. So we'll see you then. Thanks for watching.